Turn2, a Hearthstone podcast from Artosis and Doa. Here we are again, week 7 already, and we've got two great guests as usual. From the Eastern European WoW TCG scene, one of the best players ever, we have none other than Nimsh. How you doing, man?
Hi, it's good to be here.
Good. Glad you're glad to be here. And also the third place player for the TL Open that just finished last week, and a fellow aggressive TCG player, so I love this guy. It's Sixa. How's it going, man?
Doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Doing really good. And actually, this game just keeps getting more interesting. Like, this patch, I don't know what it is, but like, ever since then, the meta has been changing so fast. We've been seeing so many cool decks, so much evolution in the game, and the TL Open was kind of a good showcase of that, a pretty big variety in the decks we saw. So I thought we could kind of start off the show with talking about some of the top 4 players, the decks they're running, things like that. Before I do that, though, I suppose I should introduce my co-host. How you doing, Artosis? How's it going? You were very eager to get started today.
I am. I'm actually staring at these deck lists right now, and I'd love to talk about them, except for Flexi's deck lists.
All right, we'll get to him. We'll get to him, though. Don't worry about it. But first, let's start with the winner.
I
Let's
put
start
those
with
cards
Chan-Man.
together last night, no sleep, and drunk at 7 a.m. I'm like, I can almost kind of see it in these deck lists. But anyways, let's
go,
go.
man. All right, so let's take a look at number 1. Chan-Man, he was running Mage. No, he was running Hunter, Warrior, and Mage. So these are the decks that took first place. He had a video on it. I admit I have not watched the video quite yet, but what do we think? It's some interesting stuff. We've got. Okay, let's just start with Hunter. All right, opinions on Chan-Man's Hunter deck. Go.
He's unleashed the beast. This deck is just everywhere on the ladder right now. Like,
oh yeah,
every Hunter is just playing the Unleashed deck. It's the only, I guess, real combo deck worth playing right now. Just sit back till turn 5-6, playing your removal spells over and over again, and then kill them from 20. It's just insane. Like, the fact that the deck preys on the fact that we don't really have any like interactions on your opponent's turn. So things like the only real outs you have are Explosive Trap or like Ice Block or something like that, because they're going to play all their dudes on one turn. So I'm not a fan of it, but it wins games. So.
Yeah, it is definitely a cookie cutter build. And an interesting thing about this deck is that, like, normally you try to accumulate the combo in your hand, but still you can play early threats that your opponent needs to deal with. So just sit back and try to deal a set amount of damage, just collect a couple of cards, and then like unleash the combo and win the game. So yeah, it's very good. It's a very good deck.
It's certainly one of the most consistent combo decks that we've seen, probably the most consistent combo deck, and we're starting to kind of see more of these like attempted OTK decks sort of popping up on the ladder and in tournaments and things like that. But so far, yeah, this Hunter one seems to be kind of the most successful. I would say probably the other one that pops up not as often but frequently is the Warrior OTK. That one's still kind of around, but it's not quite as consistent.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's definitely there.
Yeah.
The giant OTK deck, yeah.
So, talking about Hunters, I mean, yeah, this is the deck we see pretty much at the top level of Hearthstone right now. Like, are there any other Hunter decks kind of worth mentioning? I mean, Beast decks are always going to be strong, always going to be popular, but I feel like Hunter, because of the strength of this OTK deck, is kind of stagnating a little bit as a class right now.
I would agree. There's some mention in like this like mid-range E kind of deck with Hunter where you're playing like your snipes, your freezing traps just to gain tempo and momentum, and then like killing them with just your series of traditional like legendary finishers with, you know, rag, etc., etc. But like the deck is nowhere near, it doesn't have that same early level power or can kill potential on turns 5 and 6. So it's just, I don't think it's worth playing in that sense.
Yeah, that's true. I've also actually seen a couple of control Hunter decks. So because it's with all the traps and damage dealing and board control, you can also like try to control the deck with control the game with the secrets and weapons, and then try to play the Tiger late and kill your opponent with kill commands. So I've seen a couple of builds that do this, like they defend, and it actually might work because a lot of people, when they see Hunter, they expect this Chan-Man's deck. exactly. They expect the OTK deck. So
Mm.
then if you're
Yeah.
like playing control, they keep a bad hand and they don't know what you're playing. So yeah.
Yeah, even with the controlling hunter decks and the other hunter decks I've seen, it almost kind of makes sense to have the possibility for the combo in there. Like Strifeco's working on a deck where it was just kind of a normal hunter control-ish type of deck, but he played Unleash the Hounds because if you're playing against a priest, you're not going to beat him with hunter control. But if you have Unleash the Hounds, you can just have that big turn and play
Just
it
punch
as
him
if
out
it's
of
combo
nowhere.
deck. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the priest deck is most of them are not going to kill you before turn 8 or 9. It's just not.
They're gonna
really...
they're gonna try and use their mind control shenanigans to
Yeah.
get board advantage and so on. So
That's another
Yeah.
topic that I wish we had like tons of time to talk about is how to kill priests. But maybe we'll get to this. I haven't.
Well, Hunter OTK
We'll
is
see.
not a bad way to do it.
no,
No, not at all. You need
especially
that.
especially with this new Stranglethorn Tiger tech that's in here that wasn't in there weeks ago.
Yeah.
Weeks ago, as long as you kept your life about 26, you were kind of okay. But with this guy, man, they just like lay him down. And you're like, this is like
Yeah.
no
How do
matter
I
what,
do
this is
this?
30 damage. Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
You legitimately just die. Yeah.
Mm.
And I mean the hero ability works so well with this deck too to just not even need to worry about getting any minion damage in, just pinging them down for a couple turns to get them in range. It's really scary actually. So that like leads into my next question here is like what do we do against this? What sort of preparation do you need to like survive the Hunter OTK? I mean, for me personally, I mean I'm an aggressive player. I just kill them first. But I've seen other people try to handle it with blockers. Secrets are possible. What do you guys think?
I will second that probably. I'm also an aggressive player, so the best strategy here is just to kill them before they kill you.
That's my ultimate goal as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait.
Because
We have a situation here where there's more aggressive players on the show than control
America.
players. This is a first. I like the
Might
way this podcast is turning out today. Yeah. All right. Sorry, continue. I just had to.
Aggressive feels actually a bit better than control right now, and
Mhm.
I think
there's more
decks
options.
like this are part of it.
Getting there.
Yeah, and you can kind of play aggressive with a lot of decks, whereas control you have to be like really careful. Like you'll kill the mid-range decks that kill the aggressive decks, but then some of these things, it's like
It's just too
I-
fast.
I've had games against OTK Hunter where I had like 2 7 health with Divine Shield. What is the name of that cow taunt girl?
Sunwalker.
Sunwalkers.
Sunwalker,
I've had
yeah.
2 of those out with 7 health thanks to Faceless Manip and the Powered Shield. And like 26 health, and they got me down to like 1 in a turn, and I was like, what is this exactly?
What just happened?
It's like I don't think I can do better than this on like turn 8, right? So
Mhm.
I don't know. The aggressive decks are winning right now, I think, but
Yeah, well, it's so scary when you play like Iron Beak Owl as part of your big hunter combo, and so
Yeah.
you're silencing their taunters
just
out too.
having
So you really
one-
need like 2 taunts. Yeah.
Yeah, like I worked like for this list in particular, like the tournament in particular. I played against Chanman this little priest combo with the the whole divine or whatever the thing that doubles their health, and then you have the inner fire as
Mhm.
well to go on top of it, and then just playing dudes with really big health like Shield Bearer, Mogashan Warden, things like that, so where you can like double it and then pump it to make it like a 14/14, and like yeah, they have ways to stop that, but they have to either beat through a 14 health wall, which is basically I played 6 mana to gain 14 health, which is pretty good against that deck, or they have to have like their 1 or 2 up outers. So like I feel like the deck is definitely beatable. It's just like you have to like, always expect the combo to come, and when it does come, you have to have something to stop it, or you're just gonna die. So
Yeah. And you need to put that early aggression to actually disrupt their hand so that
yeah,
they need
you
to
have to
start playing the cards.
actually force them to play cards, otherwise
Yeah.
they're just gonna kill you.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's move on to. We could probably talk about Hunter OTK all day, actually, but let's move on to some of the other decks. I gotta say, I'm a little bit surprised to see a Warrior deck at the #1 spot in this tournament. I mean, Warriors are good. They certainly got better post-patch. I'm not denying that, but I still feel like Warriors in a little bit of a weird place right now in Hearthstone compared to some of the other decks. I still feel like they're a little bit weaker, but maybe I'm just totally wrong. I mean, this deck got to first place in the TL Open. It seems like a fairly standard Warrior deck. What do you guys think on this one? I mean, apparently we're just putting Chillwind Yeti and everything here, but like,
Yeah, Chillwind's really good though. Like,
welcome to Value Town, right?
Yeah. The deck in particular that he played, like I wasn't too impressed when I faced off against him in Game 3 with it in the semis, but like I just stuck on my priest and like he had better threats earlier than I did, and I couldn't come out from that, which is what I guess this deck kind of looks like it wants to do. It's more of a mid-rangey control the board with dudes that have ridiculous power and butt. So, um, I don't know. Like I don't see anything out of the ordinary that makes this deck incredibly good, but it's still it can win a game for sure.
I actually feel like this deck is weird with a lot of one-offs, and
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it's very synergistic and consistent. But on the other hand, like I don't feel like Warrior is very in a very bad spot. Like you can build a really cool warrior, a tempo warrior with a lot of different stuff with berserkers. So I had a build. I was actually using it in a tournament last time, where you have a really tempo-ish, a quick warrior dealing a lot of damage, getting a lot of synergies with charge and berserkers that can really push through. So I don't feel like Warrior is in a really bad spot. It's still a good deck.
Yeah.
I feel like this deck is probably like it's a pretty decent, solid Warrior deck. I agree that the synergy seems off, the theme seems a bit confused in the deck overall, but one thing that it does have is that it is going to be fairly consistent in terms of the threat level of what you're going to play, even if it is a bunch of one-ofs. And, you know, it is a deck that kind of like admits, too, that it's going to struggle a little bit. I mean, the addition of the Molten Giants, too, says, yeah, I know I'm probably going to get pretty low health when I play this deck, but I think those are a good addition to kind of close it out. So you can see why it got pretty far, even though it is a little bit different. It's not quite as like tight as a lot of the top decks you see right now.
It's just weird that if he's playing Molten Giant, like you only have your two Warsong commanders to like give you the charge. You don't have your actual charge cards. I find that a little awkward, but like
it's definitely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Artosis, what do you think?
It feels like a little bit of a weird build, as you guys are saying, but Warrior is like just kind of hard to play against sometimes. Like that Kor'kron Elite card, every time that comes out, I feel like I'm going to lose the game. I don't know what it is about that card, but I think it's because I play a lot of priests. But they play that, and I'm just like, oh, this is really bad. And between that and some weapons and executes, it's like it can just be. It's hard to deal with. Chanman's playing like aggressive decks that are just going to be a pain in the ass, and aggressive decks right now are just so much more stable than everything else. So
yeah. They don't get flicked over as easily.
Yeah, it's like this deck counts on the fact that he's going to get like close to death nearly every game when you include stuff like heroic strike and everything. And
it's true with Warrior.
It's
like
interesting.
Your health will end up being very low, just about no matter what, because of the weapons.
In that sense, I actually like that. I feel like it captures the feeling of like PvPing with an arms warrior in World of Warcraft. Though, is that when you fight somebody, you are going to get like low, you are going to get beat up, but. So I don't know. In that sense, I kind of like the feeling of the deck. But let's move on to the mage deck. Now we've been seeing a lot of aggressive mage stuff. I mean, blue deck wins is a new like buzzword, right, at the top level for mages. And this is kind of a variation on that. There are some confusing things to me in this deck. A little bit suspect. The Flame Strikes, Pyroblast, and Ragnaros. In an aggressive mage deck, these cards seem a bit too expensive. Flame Strike. If you get to the point where you're flame striking, that means that your tempo is going to be kind of off with the deck already. Pyroblast, we see substituted for fireballs in most of the top aggressive mage decks right now because they come out, they're more readily available. You can combine them with minion damage, and you can also use them to handle big creature threats, which is okay to do in an aggressive mage deck. And Ragnaros, I mean, yeah, he's great. We all love Ragnaros, but again, you know, if we get to that point where Ragnaros is coming out with an aggressive mage deck, you've kind of lost track of what you want to do with it anyway, I feel.
You know,
so what do you think about those three cards specifically?
I kind of like this build a little bit. Like a couple of the card choices, I'm like, oh, that's like 1 Fairy Dragon, 1 Armani Berserker, and 2 6 Swampus. That's kind of techie, but I kind of like the Ragnaros in here because he's playing not just 2 Blizzards but 2 Flame Strikes as well. Because if you're playing like 2 Blizzards and 2 Flame Strikes at 5 and 7 mana, and he has like some pretty reasonable other removal type stuff in there. I feel like the Ragnaros is almost like another Pyroblast, like a third. And Ragnaros is just so damn good anyways Like, even
True.
if there's minions out, it's going to be good. But, like, I would say a turn 7 Flame Strike and a turn 8 Ragnaros is more powerful than a turn 7 Flame Strike and a turn 8 Pyroblast most of the time. So
A lot
Yeah.
of times, yeah.
Yeah, Ragnaros.
so I kind of like it.
Yeah,
Rag
this
just
deck,
wins
You
games.
you control player you.
Yes.
Like,
this,
I
this
still
deck
play
actually
Rag.
is more like a control deck because he plays early threats that you need to get rid of, and
Mhm.
then he tries to control the board with Polymorph, Fireball. Like I would guess he's mostly killing minions and trying
Yeah.
to get it into a
Yeah.
position to play Rag.
That makes more
Yeah,
sense.
But-
it seems like that. Like with this many minions in there, and especially with anytime I see Harvest Golem, I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Mana
I
Addict,
just-
seriously?
That's
Mana
the one
Addict
really
is-
I like it.
confusing thing. Right?
Yeah, it's a
I
bit...
like it. Like,
Really?
yeah, like you have Mana Addict. If it gets to attack like on turn 4 when you play your Fireball, that's still 9 damage. Like that's still a third of a player's health. So it's neat. I like it's a little greedy. Like I would say it's probably really greedy. I would probably rather play the Gnomish or the Apprentice guy, the 3/2 that mages
Yeah,
have.
I think
that's
that
all.
2-drop spot is where you want to put some draw in a deck like this.
What about? Do you like Mana Addict in here over the Mana Worm?
I like both. Like my list right now is actually playing both of them.
But I
That's
mean,
like-
he's playing Mana Addict and not Mana Worm, so
yeah, that's you
I'm
can't
like-
Mana Worm is just too good because it like 1/3s for one are just dumb.
Yeah.
Like, that's just retarded value. Like how
feel
how
like-
do you
Ask the
not
North Star
play-
Cleric.
Yeah, that too. Like we're not even there yet, but that card is like 1/3s are just for one, or I'll play them all day. Like
Yeah.
if you give me
Great
20 of
stats,
them, I'll
right?
play 20 of them straight up. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
sick.
But,
I'm gonna play a Hellfire deck against your deck.
yeah, go for it.
I don't like Mana Addict. I think it's a bad card because it's
I think
too
it's a bit too
situational.
risky. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they
Well, I
made it
feel like-
1 mana,
yeah.
I would think about it.
I guess the one thing we can say is that at 4 mana and above, he's almost all spells, and he does have the 2 Arcanes and 2 Frostbolts. So, how many times do you need Mana Addict to charge up and attack to make him as a 2 mana cost spell worth it?
Probably like
Is it
once.
twice?
Like I think
Yeah.
it's twice is what my
And then
my
it's
general
like
gut
6
feel.
damage for 2 mana. I mean, that's
That's
I-
always pretty good. Like
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem
fine
is that
with seeing it
it's
actual
easy.
ones.
It's really easy to actually trade against it, because if you
Yeah.
play whatever, which is a 3/2, you can kill it, and you're not losing your minion. So
Mm.
you can think about it in the sense too that you can use the Mana Addict as a removal spell as well, like fireball him in the face and then kill their 3/3 or something like that. But I don't know. It just feels greedy.
It's too controlly for my taste, but then again, like everything is too controlly for my taste, so that's okay. It makes sense, and Artosis would like this deck, but I don't.
Yeah.
Everything is right with the world.
I think it's really cute with the amount of AOE he's playing plus the Ragnaros. It's like pretty synergistic. I like it.
Yeah.
So I think it's my favorite out of his 3 decks.
All right. Well, that
Okay.
was the set that won the tournament, so pretty successful stuff. Let's move on to number 2. Iakoic. Who is this the same Iakoic that invented the Iakoic build in StarCraft 2?
You mean Banshee Hellion?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like is that
I would say it is.
it's designed to work like
I've always
wings.
called him in my head I echo I see, but
I echo I see. Okay. I think it was always pronounced Iakoic, like that's what people told me, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I just don't know.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's go through the list again. All right, Druid. We have a Druid.
Druid.
That's kind of
That's surprising,
a
right?
ramp
Do you guys
deck.
see Druid
Yay.
ever right now? Like it is
Like,
so rare to
Once
see.
every-
every
owns it so
30
hard
games,
right now.
maybe.
That's
like,
true.
hardly ever.
like priest control was such a big thing before the patch, but post patch, I mean, or Druid control is such a big thing before the patch, but since then, like priest just straight up hard counters Druid in a lot of ways in the late game. So that and other reasons, I feel like we are seeing a lot less Druid right now. But nonetheless, here's a Druid deck in number 2.
Well, a lot of people are playing decks now that kill Priest as well, which kind of opens up Druid maybe coming back in. And the thing is, this is like way different from other Druid builds that I've seen. Look at this, right? He plays
really
2
big.
Ancient
Ancient Watcher,
Watchers.
yeah.
I love
Ancient
Which is-
Watchers.
It's really cool because he plays 2 Mark of the Wild, and then he has 3 silences with the 2 keepers and the Spellbreaker.
Yeah.
And then what else is he playing in here that actually makes that do something? Like,
I think that's it.
He's got the market
do like
natures
the
as
Ancient
well.
Watchers.
Like you can make it the market nature give it like 4+4 or +04 and taunt, which is nuts.
oh
Like,
yeah.
4,
And
9
so,
taunts. Yeah, that's a big one.
like, I guess, well, you can't silence that either. If you silence it, it's still good. So you
Yeah,
have to
like-
use an actual removal spell on this. And for each class, there's only, like, most decks have 2, like, just remove spells, right? So
yeah. I actually
if
like
Ancient Watchers for 2 mana are eating that up, like, I really like this deck. I think it's cool as hell. It's
the Ancient Walker is nuts because like it's a 4, so like first off you dodge every single priest removal spell. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Like
true.
if they silence it, you get a 4/5. That's pretty good. Like
that's
They need some hard removal, like execute, because like if you deal some damage to it, it doesn't
Yeah.
cut it.
yeah.
yeah, I
It's-
like it. The 2 innervates is really good because it actually lets you power out stuff like your Keeper of the Groves on like turn 2 and stuff like that. So that's neat. I wish it had the gain an empty mana crystal one in there as well, but it's probably a little greedy.
Yeah.
But
I love
It's-
that card. I love that card.
like this is I think this is the closest thing that we're gonna see to like an actual like ramp deck in Hearthstone, which is good. Like I feel like that tempo advantage that you're gonna get from those kind of decks is something that we need in the format. So
I've seen people
Yeah.
taking the Druid ramp to the extreme lately, but this seems much more reasonable. You know, like we said,
Yeah.
doesn't seem as greedy. I like it a lot. I've been meaning to actually put this one together and play around with it myself yet, but I haven't had time. But yeah,
It seems very solid. Yeah, like
it does.
a funny thing is that you build this wall with the taunters, but they have enough attacks so that you can actually attack with them and still protect
Yeah.
yourself. So yeah, and you have some AOE as well.
Mhm.
So seems very good.
you've got lots of removal in the deck too. Like
Yeah.
and then the Argent Commander. Like, I'm gonna ride that hype train all the way to the.
He's so
God,
good.
Argent Commander, like, he
So
belongs
good.
in every deck. That guy. He's
There's
Yeah.
no deck that I don't want to play that card in anymore.
Yeah.
So
Like,
it's a total MVP right now in constructed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he really is.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
this
I
deck
like-
actually, this deck stresses how taunt is, how actually strong taunt is, the taunt mechanic, because you can have this this guy with taunt, and you can always attack and then still protect yourself. So you can use it in both ways. It's still an offensive and a defensive card if it has taunt. So taunt is really strong as a mechanic.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm a pretty big fan of this deck. I think this is really cool, man. I'm glad that someone's like really putting their mind into Druid, because when I first glanced, I'm like, Ancient Watcher, what's he got in here to make this work? And then that's when it became so interesting. You know, it's just he has enough cards that is cool as hell. And the thing is, so often you'll deal with something like that you're pumping up with other spells with a silence, which is, who cares? You know, it's you think Chill Wind Yeti's good,
please
man.
do.
A silenced Ancient Watcher is way better than
I
that.
hear 2 mana Chill Wind Yeti is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's like we're going from Value Town to like Value Nation now or something like that.
Yeah.
It's getting bigger and
Seriously.
bigger.
But this is why the
I-
game is so exciting, because like there are some
Mhm.
cards that people just don't think about, and then there's this player who uses them to their advantage, and he actually has a lot of value here from this card that a lot of people just ignored.
That's like the best part of CCGs in general, is getting to use those like weird cards that nobody really gets and like making them really work. That's probably my favorite thing in CCGs overall. So it's really cool to
Yeah.
see Ancient Watchers work so well in this. I want to move on to his absolutely insane Warlock deck. Like I love the Druid deck, but I love this Warlock deck. It's got so many one-ofs, but it's so crazy and aggressive and cool. I mean, we've got Lorewalker Cho in here. We've got Millhouse Manastorm, King Mukla. Like
29
this deck,
creatures dot deck.
this deck is awesome. I love it. What do you guys think?
This thing is awesome.
What is this? Like,
It's
The best
just-
deck ever.
it actually, you're right. It's 29 minions.
It's the one Soulfire and 29 dudes.
I-
It's because with
And
a
it's so
warlock
many
you
one-ofs.
can pay
What
two life
is
to
this?
draw another. Because basically you can draw like it's a warlock, so you could draw 2 cards a turn. The amount of creatures that are going to be coming out from this thing it's so huge. It's like warlock to the extreme, basically.
this is a lore walker Cho deck. Like that's definitely what I'm calling it.
Yeah.
You don't want to play spells in that deck. So like
Mhm.
if your opponent plays removal, you get free cards. That's nuts. Like
Well, like the combo of Millhouse Mana Storm and Lorewalker Cho is actually just one of the most hilarious
toss
things
them
I've ever
into it.
seen in my
Please
life.
do.
It's like,
Please do. Yeah.
yeah, I get a
if you
4/4
have both
too.
those,
Like,
that's
please play
hilarious.
spells.
Right?
Yeah.
That's-
I wish I had more knife jugglers, but that's me because I love that card. But
Yeah.
like the deck is really, really well built. Like you have your Wolf Riders, which most people don't see, but it's like a 3-mana 3/1 that just you deal 3 damage to something, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Defender of Argus in this deck is really good. I feel like this deck could benefit more from playing like Brewmasters, like the ancient Brewmaster and the young Brewmaster, like so that you get more battle cry effects going off. But um,
I guess
not-
like
I can see that.
what I like about this deck is that it's so exciting. You never know what you are going to get in that card.
exactly.
It's a Forrest Gump deck, man.
Like really, let's be honest here. This is actually just like the most effective Warlock arena deck ever constructed. That's
Working
actually
arena, let's do it here.
that's actually just what it is. Yeah. No, it's good. I really, really like King Mukla in this deck actually too, because the amount of creatures you have coming out, it's like, yeah, go ahead and give a couple of your guys +1/+1. I've got so much stuff that I can just trade all day. It doesn't matter. I just get this 5/5 out so fast.
Yeah.
Lord Walker Cho and King Mukla, infinite bananas.
Yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
so good.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The deck is really good. Like like the deck is good because you have the hero power. That's honestly what it is.
Mhm. It is
Yeah.
just a hero power, yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get more stability because of that.
And the mana curve is just like, oh my god, you're
Like turns 4 and 5 and 6 where people are playing haymakers, you're playing like 4 dudes, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh,
That's so
how do I
good.
deal with that?
it's a cool one, man. I actually need
Fun.
to put this together and play some games.
Yeah,
with
me
it.
too.
It's
Yeah,
like-
same.
Yeah. But you're right. It does look just so exciting because a lot of decks that I play right now have like 2 of each card in it to keep
Yeah.
it stable. But like this, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I guess they're this
Never
cheap and
know,
all these
right?
are good cards, and yeah, it's
Mhm.
just every game is completely different. Like you're just winning in with completely different combinations of minions.
If you can move through your deck as fast as a Warlock can too, you can afford to have like a lot of one-ofs too. So, yeah, this is the deck that's taken the best advantage of the Warlock hero ability I think that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It does a very good job of it, but I mean, Murlocs are pretty good with that as well.
Murloc.
so.
Murlocs,
I
yeah,
don't know.
agree
I'm
with
not even gonna talk
Argos's.
about it.
maybe a little bit more consistent, but
I-
hey, less fun.
I hate Murlocs.
Less fun for sure. Oh my
You
god.
always should feel a little bit dirty if you're playing Murlocs.
No, I
Like,
hate to play Murloc, man,
you
but
should
sometimes
feel
you
kinda
have
bad.
to do it, right?
Can't stand
Yeah.
Murlocs. The fact
Yeah.
that they're even in this game makes me just furious.
Spamming sorry.
You
You're
know,
playing them.
I'll hand it to them. They really did capture the feeling of fighting Murlocs that existed in World of Warcraft. They did really transfer that to Hearthstone. It's
Yeah.
just as annoying here. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, man.
Now it's like you get to be the Murloc. Well, let's move on to this mage deck. We've got a bit of a different mage deck this time around, a little bit more control oriented. We've got Cone of Cold, Water Elemental, things like that. Hogger slowing things down a little bit. No Pyroblast, but we do have Archmage Antonidas. What do you think, guys?
I
like-
don't like
Go ahead,
this one
go ahead.
as much, personally. I'm not a fan of spell power, spell damage, whatever we are calling that now.
Spell
just
power, yeah.
I don't know. And it's weird to say that like in a mage deck and stuff, but me personally, this deck doesn't touch my fun spot or something like that. I don't know.
It just feels like a standard mage deck. Like you're not.
Yeah.
I feel like you're not doing things that you want to be doing on turns 1, 2, and 3 with this deck. So it just feels not good. Like I don't want to say not good because like obviously like the guy built it for a reason, but like you're not playing aggressively. You're not like you have this really weird mid-range kind of thing, and then you're kind of sort of all in on Antonidas giving you lots of fireballs to kill them is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Like
So
it has a totally different take than the last one we've talked about, because like for Chanman he was playing threats, he was playing minions that you need to take out, and here you are like playing something weak to actually play a card that will get rid of your opponent's board position. So it seems weird. Like it seems that the cards are too dependent on each other. Like you don't have this regular
Yeah.
pattern and
Yeah.
strong cards you can use. And there is
Well,
like
I mean,
no finisher,
Go
right?
Mhm.
I mean, Archmage is kind of a finisher, but the thing just dies so fast most of the
Well,
time.
Yeah.
whenever I see Cobalt Geomancer and Raging Worgen in the same deck, I'm like, I don't know really.
I think you're
what
sending
you're
mixed
trying to
signals
do.
here.
Doesn't
Yeah.
combine, right?
It's a little bit strange. Like the first thing I would do with this deck is take out the Raging Worgen because, like,
I like.
yeah, he's great. He's great because, and I use Raging Worgen in my mage decks because I like to play in Rage Mage and aggression and stuff like that. But in this deck where he's trying to
this
CC
particular
so
build,
much
I'd
and all
agree.
that, yeah,
this particular
in
build,
this
I don't like
particular
it.
deck, yeah. Normally, I love Raging Worgen and Mage. Like any Enrage is generally pretty good in Mage because of the hero ability. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
this time around, I'm like, pick spell damage or pick aggression. You know?
I feel like it's weird that you don't like if you're playing this sort of mid-rangey, like kind of waiting for the end game kind of deck. Why aren't you playing Azure Drake? Like,
Hmm.
if you or not Azure Drake, the Twilight Drake, the 4-1 with the battle cry.
Mhm.
I feel like
Yeah.
that could be that probably has a pretty big home here.
You think so? Like I don't feel like you have many cards in your hand because like early you just played.
Yeah.
Yeah, you play a lot of.
I guess it's sort of true with like
Right.
you have a lot of 2-drops as well.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
Apprentice as well. So you will be
Yeah.
playing Mirror Image for free.
I hate this
Exposed
mirror
for-
image card. I keep
Card's so
staring at that, and
trolly.
I'm like, what is that doing here?
You know-
I do not. I guess maybe what you do is
In this deck,
you have
yeah.
Sorcerer's Apprentice out, and then you play Archmage Antonidas, and you get like 9 fireballs in your hand or something.
Yeah, and then just
It's a pretty
kill 'em with
sick
advantage.
finisher, right?
I will say that in this deck I don't like Mirror Image so much, but in other Mage decks I really like it. Like I use it in my straight up Enrage Mage deck just to keep my guys safe so that they can
On the
get
board,
a couple
yeah.
hits off. Yeah, but in this deck again, it's just a bit confused. I've got a feeling that this deck probably didn't see a lot of actual play in the tournament. I'm guessing that he probably won with his first 2 decks a lot more often than this thing came out.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes, sometimes like with regards to the tournament structure, it's good to have this kind of deck because it can counter something.
Yeah,
So,
you need to have
like-
counters, yeah.
Yeah, true.
Hmm.
Well, with all the spell power, Flame Strike, and Blizzard, like in just a giant open tournament full of a bunch of scrubs that are going to be just playing random amounts of minions. Can you complain much about that, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
draw
you're probably getting 4-for-1s pretty
Yeah.
often with those cards. So
and that's
People
pretty sick, and
overextending,
that's gonna get you deep in the tournament at least. Playing like one deck like this.
Right. If you can play it smart, it certainly can work, and obviously it did because it was part of the second
Yeah.
place. So,
That's
yeah.
it's smart to do things like that. I mean, every competitive game in a big wide open field, if you play like a kind of safe, I don't know what to call this, like a safe efficient style. Like look at all the
I guess
damage is
dually.
Cone of Cold, the Blizzards, and the Flame Strike. I'm looking at him thinking, yeah, he probably killed off all these kids that have Murloc decks, and the guy that came with his pirate deck, and like just this random stuff you'd never expect to see that might get a random win against you. You're like, okay, I'm gonna play the mage deck, and I'm gonna kill all his crap, and eventually kill him because I understand the game a bit better. So
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to our third place player. Who could that be?
Yeah.
It's actually
me.
Sixa. These are your decks, man. Now,
They
six,
are.
more
Congrats,
like
man.
six.
Sixa. These are Six's 3 decks. So you took third, which is a quite respectable result here. And you had a little bit of description here for this, but now you are the big Paladin guy. Like you are
That's me.
all in on Paladin right now in Hearthstone. So even though it's like the second deck on the list from left to right, let's start with that. Talk about your Paladin deck.
Like this deck is just go kill him. Like you have a lot of ways of just recurring threats. Like if you notice, I have 9 1-drops. That's generally a pretty good idea of what I'm trying to do. Like
That's a lot.
yeah,
That's a lot of one drops.
That's a lot.
I approve. I approve.
The deck you're trying to get is you basically just want to go kill them. Like Leper Gnome is the nuts in any sort
So
of aggressive.
good.
Like
One of the best
abusive
cards in the game,
sergeant,
man.
abusive sergeant's like, oh, turn 2, this guy, you're dead. Like I'm dealing 6 to you no matter what because Leper Gnome's gonna die and whatever. Noble Sacrifice is a really good card. Redemption lets you reset your Scarlet Crusader, lets you reset your Leper Gnomes, lets you just save a dude. The real power of the deck though revolves around like Sword of Justice and trying to get that engine going. Like if you can get even just 3 or 4 charges to come off onto your dudes, like it's really, really hard to beat. But the whole idea of the deck is like I wanted to really just abuse Divine Favor. You wanted to play as many guys as you can, and like if they don't have ways to answer you, you just value them even harder and like draw 6 cards on turn 3, which for 3 mana is pretty good.
Decent.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay.
totally.
It might win you a game or 3. Yeah.
Yeah, just a few. True Silver Champion card's just so good.
It's a
Like
good card.
Hammer of like, and then you have your removal suite with the Consecrations and Hammer's Wrath, things like that. So
I gotta
And
say,
then
you're winning me over with this knife juggler too. Because at first, and this is a little bit different of a version than I saw before, but with knife juggler initially, just like knife juggler and divine shield that I think you were running earlier.
Yeah.
I like wasn't a big fan of the knife juggler in there just because you don't have as much stuff coming out after him. But now that you've switched to like this massive amount of 1-drops, I'm like I actually do like knife juggler in this, and pairing him with sword, getting a
Yeah,
4/3 for 2 is
turns into a 4/3,
pretty
and-
scary. Yeah.
dodge all the priest removal, which is always good.
Oh, yeah.
Like the deck, like it's really I kind of designed it to be that way. I want it to be really super synergistic with the knife jugglers. So like that way, like if I get like the really good knife juggler draw, like it's punishing completely. Like I can wipe an entire board by myself. 2 cards, I killed 3 of your guys. I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true. Like Knife Juggler is a bit of RNG-ish card, but it can wreck your opponent like totally if you get
Yeah,
it.
like and it is RNG because like you can get some wasted damage, especially if like you have a noble sacrifice and they attack your knife juggler with a 2/1, and then like the 2/1 comes down and shoots him instead of the 2/1, so you don't get your 2 out of it, but you still get 1
Yeah.
damage. So it's like
Yeah.
there's stuff like that can happen, but like if with knife juggler in particular, if RNG swings your way, there's no stopping you. Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
actually have to have like runner explosive trap or something like that to just beat it.
Yeah.
Like
Totally. I really
It's-
like the secrets. The
yeah,
one.
that was another thing. Like I didn't like I don't like the fact that like I don't really have a way of interacting with my opponent, but like the secrets in this deck, they're more of a way to just defend my guys for a couple more seconds, and then like on my turn I can get that little bit of more damage and so on and so
Mm.
forth. So
It's
Didn't
always
you
fun when
think
the defender comes back with redemption and the sword's out and you get like a free 3/2 out of it. That's
Yeah.
like one of my favorite things ever with
And-
this deck.
Yeah.
I love that you play 1 redemption here as well. I really,
Yeah.
I don't
It's
like it
good
when
stuff,
someone
yeah.
plays just a couple noble sacrifices or something. As soon as you see like 1 redemption, you're like, how many secrets does he have? Which ones are
Yeah.
they? Like, and you have to it makes you play around the noble sacrifices way more because you kind of have to test.
because you don't
it.
actually know which one I'm playing. So
True.
Mhm.
I wanted to play 2 redemptions, but like I didn't have a silence in the deck at all, and I felt like Spellbreaker was just better than Owl in
Mm.
this deck. Like Owl's
Mm.
good, but like it dies to everything. Spellbreaker, if you don't have a sword, can still survive the priest stuff. So
Making
That's
him a
why.
5/4 is pretty
yeah,
cool
and then
too.
5/4 is always good too. So
Yeah.
And why did you decide to play Ragnaros and Tyrion instead of the Paladin ability that deals like 8 damage randomly? Was it or 6?
Oh, the
I don't-
avenging.
Avenging Wrath. I don't
Avenging
Yeah,
like
Avenging
yeah.
Wrath.
Avenging Wrath too much. Like it is 8 damage, like flat out every time.
Mhm.
I think Tyrion's it's better in like the matchups where you're playing against mid range, because if they have some way to kill it, you still get pretty much 15 damage out of it because it turns into the 5/3 sword, which
Yeah.
5/3 swords are really good. Like
Yeah, totally.
that's so
you actually
good.
kind of want Tyrion to die quickly with this.
Sometimes, yeah. Like, and then like if they don't have
Generally.
an answer to him, that's still 6 damage a swing, and that's always good.
Yeah, he's
Um,
still 6/6 with taunt and divine shield.
Yeah, and then Ragnaros is just I don't know. Like I think this card is honestly probably one of the most overpowered cards in the game right now. Like
Yeah, I
an
agree.
8 for 8 that deals 8 damage when it comes down, no matter what. And like yes, it is RNG, but like I've won. I think today alone I'm like 9-1 with it hitting my opponent at 8 life on turn 8. So like it's like it can just win a game. Like
Yeah.
right, cool.
Rag is stupid. He's
Yeah,
so.
Well,
bad.
I don't think
I
I think it
Oh.
needs to be like a 3/8 and then deals 8 damage, but like I don't think it needs to be able to just flat out kill everything that attacks into it. Like,
I think it should actually deal like 5 or 6 damage.
5 damage, yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
5 is probably a little more
If
fair.
it did
It's like
5 or
it's an
6, I'm like, I think I would still play it in quite a few decks, but not every deck.
it's more
you know?
reasonable, yeah.
Yeah.
There's- I think there's almost no deck I don't want to play this in except for like a hunter deck or something right now. Like,
Yeah.
the card-
that's-
it provides too much reach towards the end of the game for a lot of decks to not play.
Yeah.
I'd love to see stats on how much dust has been spent on each card in the game and just see how much higher Ragnaros is than everyone else. You know, just like, okay, it looks like every player in Hearthstone has a Ragnaros. Wonderful.
He's like the legendary that you absolutely need to have. You don't necessarily need Hogger or Lorewalker Cho, but you need Ragnaros.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, Ragnaros and Tyrion.
These
I
are
play them in,
interesting
like,
choices you had. Like, well, you don't necessarily need, Cenarius, but you have
don't
to
necessarily
have
need
Ragnaros.
Alex Strasza, but
Yeah.
Ragnaros and Tyrion are so good for closing in any sort of mid-range paladin deck because when those guys hit the board, you're probably going to be winning like next turn with it.
Yeah.
In
And
most
you also
cases.
have Manipulator as well, so you can double up.
Yeah, double Rag, double Tyrion.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Yeah,
So
good deck, man.
Yeah, totally. Let's move on to the Hunter deck here. So, I before we were kind of like breaking down this stuff, but since we've got the creator like right here, just describe what you were thinking with this Hunter deck.
And the name. What's this?
And the name,
I'm trying to figure this out.
This is
What's
an
the
FGC
runback?
reference, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just an FGC
Yeah.
reference where like I play a little bit of them, not like a whole lot or anything, but like just run
Fighting
it back
game
every
community
single
for those
time.
of
That's
you
what
who
my
don't know,
friends
by
say.
the way.
So basically
I
the
I
deck
still
is
don't
just
get it. I'm sorry. What's
Alright.
what's all in on the runback? What?
so like it's the all in part is the obviously the unleash part of the deck, which I'm all in on, and then the run it back is like it's my go-to deck if like I'm playing anything that's not a mage deck or like a hunter deck.
Oh, okay.
So,
I
like,
get you. Okay, I like it.
It'll be the go-to deck if I don't
Yeah.
like. The only reason I even built the priest deck was to actually counter the hunter deck. Like I didn't want to play the priest deck at all the entire tournament unless that was the case.
Hmm.
So, but we'll get to the priest deck in a little bit. Like the hunter deck, it's actually suboptimal in my opinion. I've already changed it almost entirely since the tournament. So
Yeah,
But,
I
Interesting
feel
here, actually.
when I see the knife jugglers there after hearing you talk about them in Paladin, I understand. I'm like, oh, you just fell in love with knife jugglers with your main deck, and
yeah,
here they are.
I love knife juggler. It's easily my favorite card in the game.
You're like, if I combo out and
Yeah, like,
knife
you always-
juggler's already on the board,
It's like oh, it's an even better version of Noble Sacrifice, but 9 times out of 10 they're just like,
If
oh
only
look,
he was a
I'll
beast.
just kill it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's I mean I still run snake traps in my deck just because of the synergy with starving buzzards. Like if they try to attack a starving buzzard rather than using a removal spell on it, you're still drawing 3, which is
yeah,
really good.
yeah.
You can actually play around it, but
Yeah, you can.
The current-
There's ways.
yeah, but a lot of people don't because of the current state of the game. Like people don't get those synergies and stuff, so
Most
they will
people
attack your
will-
puzzle.
Most people will assume it's explosive trap, is what I've noticed too. When you're playing Hunter, they assume every secret is explosive trap or snipe, and so
That's
yeah,
true.
you can get away with the snake trap buzzard combo pretty
Which
often.
is
I've
the
seen.
most insane thing in the whole world. As soon as
Yeah.
that happens,
Yeah.
I feel like I win.
I actually don't like Hunter's Mark as much anymore. Like
I've
been-
never liked that card.
I liked it in this version of
Yeah.
the deck because it trades really well with a bunch of stuff, and like you have the stone testing boards, so that you can just go Hunter's Market and then poke it for 1, but you're still kind of 2 for 1ing yourself, so that's never really good.
Well, I mean, it works okay with Snake Trap too. I mean, if you get your Snake
Yeah.
Trap activated, you can Hunter's Mark and like use one of your tokens to take out whatever you want, basically the next turn too. So
Yeah.
it does have
It's-
synergy, but overall, yeah, I'm not as much of a fan of that card.
This
The
deck
thing
Or
was
Knife
just
Juggler. It works with Knife Juggler, so
That's
Yeah,
true.
just-
Yeah.
Knife Juggler's too.
Never mind. It's great. It's fantastic.
But,
True.
I just like I wasn't like when I played it in the tournament, I wasn't exactly thrilled to see it in my hand like almost ever. So it wasn't something I really wanted to play. I'd much rather have just had like the extra deadly shot and like the extra snipe than play it most of the time. So, but other than that, like it was decent. Like it killed a 120 gate Mogashun Warden in my round of 32 against Strife Crow. So I was pretty
Wow.
happy about that.
That's not bad at all.
But this deck just lacks Ragnaros.
Yeah, it doesn't. I didn't.
It's true. Why isn't Ragnaros in this deck?
It should have been in
Explain
there, I
yourself.
think. Like, but I was like, I don't have a taunter, and it was like, This was when I was messaging you on Skype or on Twitter. I was like, "Do you want to play test?" Because like I didn't have any idea of how I wanted to build this, and I was like, "I don't have a taunter. Play Iron for a Grizzly instead of Ragnaros," and that was like not good.
I see.
Iron instead of Ragnaros. I've never heard anyone choosing
Yep.
between those two cards. Like,
It's a beast. It'll draw me a card. It's great.
yeah.
Never do
I'll
that
just
ever
combo
again.
out with the Iron for a Grizzly. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure it's 3 mana, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
Who needs
never
Grizzly when
do
you
that
yeah,
ever
needs
again.
Ragnaros?
It's like on a sticky note. Don't be stupid.
Well, let's move on to the priest deck. What? Tell us the story behind this one.
So this one came about of like the Paladin deck, like when I'd first like it was the night before this tournament, and I was like, I'm gonna go play some ladder games, and then I ran into like 3 hunters in a row playing the Unleashed deck, which was like okay, and like I went 2 for 1 with them, and was like, if someone builds this correctly, I don't really have a way of like killing them fast enough in my Paladin deck 9 times out of 10. So like I was like, well, what's a good way of actually stopping the Paladin deck without like, because they have ways of stopping secrets too with Flare. So like I was like, well, let's play lots of taunt dudes and go all in on that. Like you have the shield bearers, you have the light spawns, you have the Mogashan wardens, and they all have really big toughness, which is really good. So like inner fire is good. Like if this deck would really really work if I could play 4 inner fires, but I can't. So. But the whole point of the deck is just Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, making one really big guy that the Hunter deck has to beat through, and then, do it that way.
14/14 Warden, right?
Yeah, like
Or-
make a 14/14 Warden, or make it like a 28/28 Warden if you like can just one-shot them with sometimes.
Mm.
So
That's
So-
cool.
It seems
And
like
the Faceless Manips, I like it. This is
Yeah.
a really cool answer to that.
Yeah.
It really is.
yeah.
like you can keep doubling up. Like I have this Taunter. It's a 1/7. Well, I'm gonna try and kill it. Well, I'll just make another one. Well, I'll try and kill that too. Well, I have a third. And then, and then obviously you have the one card that like I don't understand. Like a lot of people keep complaining about mind control to me, and I'm not in that conversation right now. Mind control's a fine card. I just think that the rest of the removal suite for priest is just too strong. And Ragnaros is just obviously Ragnaros, but
Yeah, Ragman.
It
Yeah.
seems like this deck is a bit dangerous. Like if you are facing a lot of aggro decks, it's great because you have a lot of taunters. You can double them up, and they won't do much against you. But if you play against some mid-range deck with a lot of removal, then they can remove your guys before you combo.
that was the problem
Yeah.
I had against Chanman in Game 3. Is like he played his warrior deck against it, and it was just like, oh, I don't really have. He just hit that guy for 1 and now executed, and now your
Yeah,
1/7 is
true.
gone. It's just like
And that's sort of the issue with playing sort of like counter decks in one of your 3 too, is that you're going to be like really prepared for one really popular deck, but then you might kind of like suffer the next game after that.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings up
But
the question a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
I mean,
gonna
it
say
is-
that it's cool as a counter deck though too, because it's
Yeah.
kind of randomly you might kill somebody with it as well with
Yeah.
you know,
it certainly
Divine
has
Spirit,
potential.
Inner Fire type of play.
yeah, like
you
it still has kill potential.
just
Like,
randomly
absolutely.
run
Oh, yeah.
someone over, if the stars line up and stuff. But it's
Yeah.
kind of cool. I like it.
All of your snipers are going to have chances to get wins, after they do their sniping thing, basically. But
Yeah.
that kind of brings up the question, like how much sniping do you want to have in your deck list for a tournament like that, as opposed to like solid all around deck? I feel like 2-to-1 is good, where you have like 2
That's
solid
my
decks
idea.
and 1 sniper for something that's popular. Like, do you guys agree with that more or less, or what
I
do you
feel
think?
that's fair. Like that was my general idea. Is like the Hunter deck I built just because like I like the Hunter deck. It's the combo with Unleash is just really fun. And then obviously the Paladin deck is just silly, but the Priest deck was just completely 100% to be my stone wall against that other Hunter combo stuff. So
Makes sense. Nimsh, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Like if you because you're choosing 3 decks, it's good to have like a counter deck. We know the meta game right now. We know what decks are strong, so it's good to have this wall deck that you can actually protect yourself and then use different decks to win against a player. So totally.
All right. Well, let's see. All right. Now, we're going on to the 4th place person in the tournament. Now,
Dude,
to preface
here's the
this,
thing.
His comment is, I put those cards together last night, no sleep and drunk at 7 a.m. That said, took 4th.
That's
anyone
professional.
that says that, I don't even really want to look
I
at the
don't-
deck list. Like if
Yeah.
they're saying that, like whether it's true or not, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah,
You know? It's
so
like,
I
oh,
feel
you
like-
did that, you got top 4. I don't care about your deck list.
This
Like,
feels like the
Exactly.
first, like just looking at the list, this feels like the first legitimate case where he like, I don't want to say paid to win in, but like it actually looks like that. Like it really does look like that.
You can
just
luck
from
your
looking-
way up there, yeah.
Yeah.
So I figured we were going to kind of pass over this set a little bit too, because
it's
yeah,
whatever.
pretty much.
Congrats to
Alright.
him. I mean, that's
Yeah, good
pretty
job,
solid
Flexi.
for that. But
I think Flexi took out Monk in the round of
You know,
8 or something. I'm
The
not
thing
sure.
is that if you have basic, solid knowledge of TCGs and minion trading and good basic mechanics, you can literally do this and go far in the early stages of a CCG like this. So,
Yeah.
obviously he knows what he's doing when it comes to CCGs. He knows how to play the game. And so, yeah, you can just kind of throw stuff together and do reasonably well from
you'll
time to
outplay
time.
a lot
but-
of people as long as
Yeah.
your deck is somewhat consistent on its mana curve and stuff like that.
Exactly. You can follow the basics and do well. But as far as analysis goes with these decks, I don't feel like we really have a lot to talk about with that. So,
Yeah.
One thing I did want to mention, we are kind of short on time, but maybe we'll go a little bit over here. Now, Nimsh was one of the top WoW TCG players in Eastern Europe right up until this year, basically, or last year, basically. And now the game is kind of dead. It's been killed by Hearthstone, unfortunately. But we
Yeah.
wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between the WoW TCG and Hearthstone, the pros and cons with that. So, I mean, you're the expert here. I played like one starter deck once, so I don't really have any experience with the WoW TCG. I think that's kind of all of us basically right now. So yeah, it's just like, say your piece. I'm really curious to hear your opinion on this.
Okay, so maybe let's start with this, that the game Hearthstone is really, really similar to WoW TCG. It's a bit different than Magic, but with regards to how the mechanic goes and everything, and the look and feel and everything, it's really, really similar. So I think the biggest difference right now is the visibility, because Hearthstone is obviously a computer game, so you can stream it, you can record videos and everything with the media. And with the card game, with the regular WoW TCG, like you couldn't do this. You had this shady software that you could test on, but that's it. Like if you wanted to play the game, you had to actually meet your friends mostly in a store. But that's it. Like this is totally different. Like people will get more attention, and they can. For example, I can stream right now, which I'm doing as well. And I can, when I'm playing, I'm talking about what I'm doing. So a lot of players can just like look into my mind, like what are my decisions and background. And it's also interesting because the pace of the game is like a bit slower than the other games which are popular, like League of Legends and StarCraft, because now I have time to actually explain what am I doing during my opponent's turn. So it's really cool. But with regards, with regards to the mechanics, like there is a couple of differences. The biggest difference I think is that you can't do anything on your opponent's turn.
Yep.
So there are no interactions besides secrets, obviously.
And
which
emotes.
Yeah, and emotes. Yeah, I'm
Got it.
sorry. I'm playing this Murloc. I'm
Say
sorry.
sorry and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, true. Like I think this is actually good. On the past episode, Brian mentioned it, that it gives you a chance to actually speed up the game, because you don't have to reply to anything your opponent does. Like you can just alt-tab and check social media, and then get back and check the history quickly. So for me, it's actually a plus for an online game like this. So that's the biggest difference. And a second thing, I think, you obviously get less cards when you start a game, because in WoW TCG you got 7, and here you get 3 or 4. Also the mana system with resources. So in WoW TCG you could place any card from your hand as a resource, and you had to do it, and you had to do this choice. Here you just gain the mana crystals as the game goes, which makes the game a bit simpler, but also it might make the game more enjoyable, because you don't have to do those decisions and decide which card to place if you like both of them, for example. And the last thing that was the most different, I think, is the weapon system, because in WoW TCG, weapon didn't have the durability; it had the strike cost. So you were playing a weapon, and then when you were striking with it, you had to pay X cost of mana, but the weapon just stayed on the board. So you can strike as many times as you wanted, but you had to pay for each strike. And here in Hearthstone, you have you actually don't have to pay for the strike, but you have this durability that destroys the weapon. But other than that, like I love the game because it has the same look and feel. I was talking about it a bit earlier, but for example, Feral Spirit, like we know what Feral Spirit does, right? It summons two wolves, and in an online game it does it. In WoW TCG it did it, and also right now it does the same thing. So it's like when I'm transitioning from WoW TCG into Hearthstone, that's a really cool thing for me because like I know those cards, I love the art, I love the lore and theme behind them, and now I can use the same cards as well. Another example would be Gorehole, for example, which is also very similar because like Gorehole is this legendary. I mean, it's not a legendary card, but it's a legendary weapon that was used by the lore character. And
Yeah,
it's,
legendary in the lore for sure.
yeah, exactly, and it's a pretty much similar in both games. So I can play like almost the same game, but I can play it non-stop online, which is fantastic.
So is there anything that, the WoW TCG had that you'd like to see kind of added to Hearthstone?
Yeah, it's actually a good question. I think for now we are just having the basic set, and the game is already good, as you all know. And I think like Blizzard will be probably adding more mechanics to the game anyway. So more mechanics that add depth, like something to do with the graveyard, so the cards that you've discarded.
Right.
Some more choices with the cards that you have in hand, so you just don't not only play them, but you can do something else with them, like discard or decide some more decision making, etc. So I think they will add it in the future expansions or future sets because there is like a lot of potential there, and yeah, like mostly it. Like the game is going in a really good direction right now, and I love what they are doing with this game.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the difference in the hero powers? Like, I know in the WoW TCG, like you can only use the hero power basically once per game, right? Because you have to
Yeah.
flip the card.
Yeah,
Like
that's
here,
right.
we obviously have like the just constant mana battery with like everyone else like paying 2 mana a turn. Like, is that a good or bad thing for you?
For me personally, it's a good thing because even if I draw something bad, if I'm, for example, playing like turn 6, 7, and I'm going from the top because I've spent all my cards, there's always something I can do each turn because of the hero power. So it really adds like a bit of dynamic to the game because you're not stuck. Like sometimes in a regular game without the hero power, you would be drawing a card and doing nothing this turn.
Yeah.
And here for sure you can do something at least, like get 2 armor, heal 2 damage or whatever. So I really like this.
That's cool. I can't wait until we have more expansions for Hearthstone. I mean, I know we're still like figuring out the core set and all that, but I just want more cards to play with because I want to do more cool stuff. So that'll be cool. But yeah. Well, I think that is about it for our show today. So I think it's time for shout outs. I guess let's go ahead and start with you, Sixa.
Alrighty. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Sixa. I post some tweets. I'm trying to get my stream up to par. Like I'm still dropping frames. If anyone wants to help me with that, I'd be much appreciated about that. Shout outs to Team Liquid LOL sub forum. You guys are awesome. Thank you for coming out and watching. Other than that, that's it.
All right. Nimsh, what have you got to say?
Well, my shout out will probably go to my WoW TCG team from Poland that helped me a lot during my WoW TCG days, and without them I probably wouldn't be here, and with all the wins and tournaments and stuff. So the team is really important, and I think like in Hearthstone we also have teams that people gathering together, brainstorming and getting decks together, testing. So my shout out goes to them. Thank you guys. It was good to play with you, and I hope that we'll play again in Hearthstone as well.
And I have to ask you about that giant orc behind you.
Yeah.
There's. Can you like lean it over? Can you turn the camera so we can actually see this? You've actually got a huge orc in your room, and he's wearing a top hat.
Yeah,
he's actually
that's
wearing
true.
a top hat. Wow,
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a Warcraft 3 Thrall figure of 1/1 life size. And I got a really good deal on this because the guy is worth a lot, and I was able to buy it for like 100 USD from a
That's
guy
so awesome.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's an awesome deal for sure.
What every gamer's apartment needs, I think, a 1-to-1 scale
For
for all
sure.
figure with the
Yeah.
top
Dude,
hat.
I
of
want
course.
one. Shoot.
We have a top hat, yeah.
That's right. Just need to add gore
Awesome.
howl to that. Artosis, what's up?
Well, for my shout-outs, TT Sports and iBuyPower, my sponsors, and big thanks to you guys for coming on. This was one of my favorite shows so far. A lot of fun discussion. And, of course, Nimsh, it's like 3 a.m. there or something, so you're pretty manly to be up.
4 a.m.
That's
to be exact.
hardcore.
What a
And
champion.
also, if people haven't checked out yet, we're doing a King of the Hill at iHearthU.com. We just had LS play against Strive Crow, and myself and Doa commentate that, so you can go check that out at iHearthU.com. And our second one is going to be happening. I'm not sure exactly which day, but coming up very soon. And it's actually this guy right here. Where is he on the stream? I don't even know.
You have to
but
point to your
In one of these
right.
directions, Nimsh is going to be playing against the winner of number one, which I won't spoil because a lot of you probably haven't watched yet. So go check that out. It's a lot of fun. We're doing best of 7, like 4 decks instead of 3, just to
It's really
kind of
cool.
give a little bit more variety, I guess. So
This game is so
it's a lot
much
of
fun to
fun.
cast, by the way, too.
it
It's
is.
actually-
We had a good
yeah.
time in that. It was fun.
And
I enjoyed
this
watching
format
it.
is really, this format is really good. Like King of the Hill is fantastic to play. You have a
It's
lot of
really
decks
fun.
to choose from. Yeah.
Each player gets 4 decks. It's so cool. I can't wait to see like the games that come out of this. It's gonna be
And,
good. No
of course,
spoilers, Nimsh.
A shout out to Simpatico too, who does all the production for this and the show match and everything else that we do. So it's pretty awesome.
I will also shout out Simpatico, man. The work this guy puts in, like all the editing that was done in our first King of the Hill, if you've seen that yet, that was all Simpatico. So he does
I can't
so much
imagine how long
work.
that takes. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
he designed iHearthU. He
Awesome
like
work.
puts up all our
Yeah, it was
articles.
really good.
Yeah, super awesome dude. So definitely thank him. So thanks to you guys for coming on. It was a great show. A lot of good conversation today about deck building, which is my favorite thing in the world with CCG is talking about deck buildings. I guess for my stuff, follow me on Twitter and Twitch at GGDoa. I haven't had any time to stream lately, and I'm actually going to the U.S. Next week for 2 weeks, so I'm not going to be on the show for a couple weeks, but I'm sure Artosis is going to do just fine. And so that's I guess about it for me. Definitely go check out iHearthU as well. We've got awesome forums as well. A lot of good conversation going on those as well. I think we've got the iHearthU.com. It's on the overlays, so that's the web address. Go check it out. Until next week, thanks for watching, guys. This has been Turn 2. Watch for more King of the Hill stuff, and we'll see you next time.